What's up everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, I will cover the assembly of the Fitness Reality 4000MR magnetic dual handle rowing machine. Hopefully it'll help you assemble it faster and easier. It's unique because it has two handles that can move independently in any direction. I will also make a complete review video after becoming familiar with it through regular use. I will put a link down in the video description when it's available. So let's start at the beginning. Here's the box. To assemble it, first, you will need to get the box to the location where you want to build it. The box is relatively heavy, weighing in at 137.4 pounds. So, you may need some help transporting it. I used this cart, which made it very easy. Unfortunately, there's not enough room for this rowing machine in the Rise of Iron gym, so I'll be assembling it in this adjacent room over here. Let's open up the box and take a look inside. There's a few boxes and packages laying on top. I pulled out the items that I could, but the rower cannot be lifted out from the top. You will need to dump it out or cut the box apart. Since it's a rowing machine, I decided to row it out, just for fun. It did the job. Here's a close-up of the styrofoam brick that came out of the box. It's packed full of little boxes and components. There is tape all over the place, and it's packaged very well. Let's get it all unpackaged. And here's a close-up of all the components unpacked. Now, let's remove all the packaging from the components, so we can assemble them. And here's a close-up of everything with the packaging removed. Now we're ready to assemble. First up, get the 6mm Allen wrench. You need to remove this tube with 2 screws, and this tube with 2 screws. Remove the 2 screws on the top piece, then remove it. Then, remove the 2 screws securing the bottom piece, lift up the rower, and remove it. These 2 tubes and the 4 screws are not needed. They can be permanently discarded. Next, it's time to install the foot pads. Get the front stabilizer, and notice the up sticker. The pads go in the bottom. Screw the foot pads in hand tight. Next is the rear stabilizer. The labels go on the top, and the foot pads go in the bottom. Screw the foot pads in hand tight. Time to install the front stabilizer. Lift up the mainframe and slide the front stabilizer underneath. We're still using the 6mm Allen wrench and 2 of these screws. Install the 2 screws and secure them with the Allen wrench. Next, you will need the Phillips screwdriver and the front stabilizer cover. The front stabilizer cover is 2 pieces. Use the Phillips screwdriver to remove the screw and separate them. Install them around the post and retighten the screw to secure it. Looking pretty good. We're doing a great job. Next you will need the 8mm Allen wrench and all 4 of these big screws, because it's time to attach the pedal brackets. There is a left hand and a right hand. Make sure the heel strap is at the bottom. Install 2 screws and tighten them down with the 8mm Allen wrench. Then, repeat the process on the other side to install the other foot pedal. Next, we're moving on to the front post. Connect the sensor wires, then slide the front post onto the mainframe. Line up the 2 through holes in the post with the tapped holes in the mainframe. Get the 6mm Allen wrench and these 2 screws, and bring in the rod holder. Line up the 2 through holes in the rod holder with the holes in the front post and the mainframe. Install the 2 screws and tighten them down with the 6mm Allen wrench. Now it's time to install the console. First, use the Phillips screwdriver to remove the 4 screws and washers on the back. Connect the sensor wires. Then, use the 4 screws and washers that were removed to install the console to the bracket at the top of the front post. Now we're getting to the fun stuff, the handlebars. First, get the open-end wrench. Down at the shaft sleeve, hold the head of the bolt up with your finger and use the wrench to remove the nut. Then, pull the bolt out and set the bolt and nut aside. Now, insert the end of the handlebar into the shaft sleeve. I rotated it up and set the top of the handlebar into the holder for convenience, but it's not required. Back at the connection, slide the bolt back up through the handlebar. I had to remove the top of the handlebar from the holder to get it aligned, so it wasn't so convenient after all. Hold the bolt up with your finger and install the nut, then secure it with the open-end wrench. Taking a look underneath, this is why you only need to hold the bolt up with your finger and don't need to hold it in place with a tool. The flat on this bolt head is trapped by this plate, which prevents the bolt from rotating. And while we're here, notice this screw and this screw. Therefore, installing the next part, the shaft sleeve cover. Slide it over the shaft sleeve with the screws going in the slots. Then use the Phillips screwdriver to tighten the screws down and secure it. And repeat the process on the other side to install the other handlebar. Now let's move on to the rear of the rower. Start with the rail and the rear stabilizer with the foot pads and the 8mm Allen wrench and these two screws. Lift the rail and place the rear stabilizer under it. Install the two screws and tighten them down with the Allen wrench. Now we're closing in on the end. Install the seat onto the rail by sliding the rollers into the slots. Now to trap the seat in the rail, get the 6mm Allen wrench, the 5mm Allen wrench, these two bushings, and this axle. Remove the screw and washer from the end of the axle bolt. Then slide on the bushing and slide the axle bolt through the rail. Going to the other side, install the second bushing. Then reinstall the screw and washer. Use the 6mm Allen wrench to hold the axle in place, and use the 5mm Allen wrench to tighten the screw. Now the seat is secured in the rail. Now let's make it look nice. Use the Phillips screwdriver to remove the 4 screws in the back leg, one at the top on each side, and one on the bottom at each side. Then bring in the split cover for the rear leg. Secure them in place by reinstalling the 4 screws. And that's it for assembling components. Time to attach the front half to the back half. You will need both open-end wrenches and this bolt. Remove the zip tie and make sure the bushings don't fall out. And connect the sensor wires. Then slide the rail into the main frame, making sure those bushings stay in, and line up the holes. Remove the nut and washer from the end of the bolt and slide the bolt through. Moving around to the other side, install the washer and the nut and use the 2 open-end wrenches to secure it. At this point, the bolt is a pivot and the back can be lifted up to save space for storage. During use, install this knob, insert it into the hole through the rail and the main frame, and rotate the handle to tighten it. Make sure the handle is facing forward. Now it's ready to use, and you can also move it around. Lift up the back and roll it around on the front wheels. The final step before use is plugging it into power for the console. The power cord plugs into the rower right here. Then you are ready to row. I did not use this wrench, and I don't know what it's for. So that wraps this up. I hope you found it helpful. I will do a full review video on this rowing machine after I've used it for a few months. But I'll tell you right now that I like it. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.